We come into relationships expecting them to already know the things that it would be impossible for them to know, how to treat us. We come into a relationship thinking about what we are going to get out of it and how good we want to feel and how good we think things should be and everything we bring to the table that should already justify the fact that you should give me more. And it's like that. And my take, and I said this recently on a live, my take is that that's just the overall wrong perspective, in that better relationships are somewhat the key of a better future, in the sense of, if we're changing the world, we need to change how we relate to each other, especially in these brand new times with all kinds of new technology and things to get lost and distracted in. And it doesn't make any better the type of pressures that society is, or the messages that society is already perpetuating, and the images that they're giving us to feel comfortable with. What up, what up, what up? It's your boy Dave B. You're watching DaveBeyondTV, where we go beyond the everyday bullshit that people be consuming on a day-to-day basis. And today I want to talk about relationships. So, relationships, we're going to go into the ins and outs. I'm going to do this similar to how I did my series on decision making. But this, so there's going to be multiple parts. But for the most part, we're going to start with the basics. We're going to apply astrology where it fits. I know not everybody might be into astrology. Astrology is merely a tool that we used on this channel just to understand things from an energetic sense. If you don't know about astrology, then, this will be a good segue. You might hear things and connect it, but trust and believe at the core, I'm speaking on more so psychology and how the mind works, and also how your spirit interacts with mentality. Because as spirits, right? Spirits, we're having a human experience. As spirits, we build minds, we build ways of thinking based upon what we feel and what we think. And we know that thoughts and feelings are things that pass through, and what determines our thoughts and feelings are the things that we choose to resonate with and hold on to. And then what we do is we replicate these things, right? So let's say you receive, because we're constantly receiving thoughts and feelings, but for the most part, there are certain thoughts and feelings you receive, the ones that you choose to hold on to and agree with. These things become, okay, it's almost like you start to, by you choosing and picking what thoughts and feelings you resonate with, by default, that influence you to then go and create more of those things, whether you recognize it or not. And what I mean by that, and a good example is, even how children grow up. When children have parents who think and communicate a certain way and feel a certain way, the child receives all of that, and depending on what they agree with as that child is an individual, what they agree with is what they take and carry with them into the outside world. And this becomes the building blocks of how they build their own personality. See, everyone's unique and everyone's different, but again, a lot of behaviors are learned. We're as humans, right? Humans are very I forget the technical or the science term for it, but humans, how they say nurture versus nature and things like that. There's a lot of learned behaviors that are developed because that's what it is. Communal. That's the word that people will use to describe humans. Communal. You know what I'm saying? We work more so in a community setting. Even early ages and things like that. When you hear about just how things used to be, how things always were. Really, it was always about community, even though in today's time, it doesn't seem like things are in that same manner. But if you, think about you going to elementary school, and the friends you developed throughout school, elementary, middle, high school. What would you, everybody says the same thing at graduation or when they leave high school. And it's like, man, I was only friends with those people because I've seen them every day. And that gives you an idea of, we group together because honestly, and these are cliches that we say all the time, like, oh, teamwork makes the dream work and stuff like that. But the reason we say those things, even politically, the power is in the people, even though people have forgot what that really means. People lose the plot when it comes to that, but it's all the same thing, as far as how human nature interacts with things. It's all about relationship. It's all about, and that's the key word we're talking about today, is relationship. It's all about how you connect to the next person. And that connection is cultivated through forms of communication, which is the externalization of what we think, right? What we think can have two paths. Either we practicalize it, so we take a minute to sit and think it over, or it becomes something we're ready, prepared, and willing to externalize, which becomes communication. When we take our ideas and we give them words that produce images and incite feelings in others. And the thing about that, understand that part too of what I'm saying, incite feelings in others. What I feel, no one else knows. Everyone is, as an individual, your feelings are only known to you. When you choose to express yourself, which can happen in two different ways. Fire energy, which is like, the expression of something more emotional, might not make a lot of sense, but it's you seeing something. So for instance, me doing my hand like this, you see something. This can be interpreted in a multitude of different ways, right? But based upon how I'm doing it and your level of awareness of other times you've seen this type of expression, that'll lead you to have an idea or an image of what I may be communicating without even saying a word. I'm just doing this. And that's a good representation of understanding how fire energy is expressed, right? But then there's also communication, which is the more logical form of this. I could say, it exploded. Now you have more context to understand the image you see. And that's even how we explain the sextile, which is the relationship. Sextile is a certain alignment in astrology. It represents an opportunity. When two energies meet, they, like sex, create a new energy. So a sextile in astrology, we describe it as when certain energies align, fire and air, for instance. These connect and create an opportunity to produce something new that can be favorable or unfavorable, depending on what exactly is sextile. And that's when we get into more technical terms of astrology, such as, when we're talking about planets, like what planets are aligning and stuff like that. So if you hear an astrologer talking about that, even if that astrologer, because a lot of pop astrologers will explain things in a way that sound very, very vague and very, I call them pop culture astrologers, because it's pop culture uh, descriptions they'll give you for what that means. And, I'm gonna break it down, very simple for you as far as what it really means. And we're going to kind of leave all the pop stuff at the door. And when I say pop culture, I mean like you're gonna win $1 million when these two planets align and stuff like that. All that bullshit. That's bullshit astrology. That's the astrology that's gonna rot your brain. That's astrology that attracts the same crowd as people who play the lottery. You know what I'm saying? And if you play the lottery, hey, you know what I'm saying, to each their own. But y'all, that that jackpot feeling. It's like the thing that keeps you hooked. It's really what I mean. You know what I'm saying? When I say jackpot, or when I say the lottery, where it's a crazy, you spending hella money for something that's set up for you to spend a lot of money to, may possibly never win. But again, good faith. But y'all know it gets you on the hook, because you think, oh, if I win a little bit of this, I win a little of that. One day I'll actually get that $1 million. And see, what it is ain't nothing wrong with the lottery itself. But the thing is, it's like a carrot on a stick for a horse. You know what I'm saying? And it keeps you chasing and kind of in this cycle and blinded. But that's a tangent. But like I'm saying, so the sextile, the opportunity, what can be produced when you get fire and air. Talking about external expressions of things, you have the expression, the color of it, making it look unique and individualistic. That's the fire of it, the flare. Oh my gosh, okay, no one can do it like that individual. But then you also have a way of conveying logic, explaining these actions that make it even more potent, and have the opportunity to further make it clear what's being communicated and expressed. You feel what I'm saying? But then you have the other side of things, right? Your emotions, how you feel. Now, one of the things in relationships, when we talk about, a lot of times this plays into what I was saying in the beginning. We get into relationships expecting people to already understand us, understand how we feel, and understand how we make sense of the world, which is earth and water. Now, the thing about earth and water, like I said before, no one knows this except for you. Your feelings are only true to you. The only way you can make them reach another person is if you are able to convey that feeling through expression or communication that can incite a similar feeling in them. And the thing about it is, the only way you can really confirm that is based upon the reaction you get from that other individual, which is very risky. It's very scary because when you start to get in that territory, that's when people have the most issues. And I meant to turn this light on. Damn. I wanted to turn this light on so I'm not too dark in there. But like I was saying, the only way, I don't know if that makes a difference, but we're gonna see. I'm setting up this little studio area. This ain't even the area I'm supposed to be filming in, but again, y'all go see. We switching some things up. I could have turned that light on. But anyway, yeah, we switching some things up. But back to what I was saying. So is there a shadow behind me? All right, I'm getting distracted. But back to what I was saying. So, like I was saying, this is where in those moments in a relationship, you start to feel distant. Because the thing about it is, when you're thinking about feelings, see, feelings and emotions, their role in a relationship is connection. When you express yourself in the feeling, the reaction you get from who you're expressing yourself to confirms what you know to be true in your feelings, your inner world. That makes you feel closer, because the one thing that no one else can understand, which is how you feel, is two things happen. You successfully expressed it, which is confirmed in how they reacted to it. And if they react favorable, in a sense, they move closer to you because it's confirmed that spiritually y'all are in a similar space or close in distance. But see, when you get a reaction from somebody in which doesn't feel like, say their reaction, say you're excited that you got a new job and you express it to your partner and they give you a feeling like, all right, that could be heartbreaking. And what's happening is the heartbreak is just you recognizing that the space you in emotionally is very, very different from the space they're in. And you confirm that based upon their reaction. And their reaction, the thing about reactions, sometimes we react and that reaction becomes an expression that sends a signal as well. Kind of how they say, like, you can tell how somebody feel based upon their body language. Nothing, just the way they move or small things that they do. Even investigators and stuff, cops will tell you, it's all about reading, like in criminal investigations and things. And when they're in interrogation rooms, being able to pick up on signs of a person being dishonest or things like that, looking away or looking down, or reactions, small reactions, body language that explain what, because again, in the same light, because no one knows what's really going on inside of you. People can lie to you. People can say whatever they want. They can act however they want. You know what I'm saying? If they're trying to cover things up. So there's these things that make, that's on the other end of things being, as far as a lie and expressing things to throw people off, what's really going on. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of what we do as spirits. Spirits are always dealing with that internal world and knowing, okay, I feel close to this and I feel far away from this. And that's kind of what we can attribute to intuition. But see, the thing about intuition and where it gets mixy in relationships is because your intuition, like I said in a little earlier, what's true to your feelings are only true to you. So if you're feeling a certain way, you're in a certain space, and that intuition says, see, the thing is, we misinterpret intuition. Intuition is always, for the most part, right. What feels right is right, and what feels wrong is wrong, right? But context. Sometimes we need to do things that don't feel good in order for better things to come. Sometimes things that feel good lead us to our demise. So the problem with intuition is the interpretation of it. And that's a whole different, this is when we start to cross this is actually a very key point, because this speaks more on the relationship with yourself. And this is why relationships become complex. It seems very simple, but what's happening is there's a external thing that we see based upon our our external relationship with our partner, but then there's an internal process as well. And this is what I'm speaking on: how we interpret the world and make sense of it may not see the battles that we fight with our own selves. A lot of times are what create opportunities for conflict with our external partner, based upon, it can range from anything from projection, right? You can be feeling something that day and project onto your partner how you feel about you. It could be things from your past. Again, childhood trauma is at the root of every relationship. What you went through previously, specifically your upbringing, that led to other experiences when you were a young adult. And then especially if you're talking about relationships later on in your life, 25 plus, there's a lot of life that you've lived. By 25, that's a quarter roughly of your life you lived before you even knew about who this new person was, right? And ironically, a lot of times who we, there might be a pattern similarities, but everyone's different. Everyone's a individual. So think about that. 25 years of what you might have carried from you, experiences that have led to you being who you are in this moment, meeting this other person who has a whole nother 25 years behind them. And y'all are meeting on this center point. And see, this is where the core of a relationship is so important, because, you know, the foundation is the determining factor on whether or not that will last. And a lot of people see today's time a lot. And that's really the reason why I'm making this series, is because today's time, uh, we see people constantly talking about how bad the dating pool is and why it doesn't seem like we can connect and have healthy relationships. Why is it so toxic? And then we have discussions about just the state of the world and society, and how things are being, everyone's being influenced to be more so on some solo, be on your own, be your own person, be your own, what they say, kind of like, it's a situation where it almost feels like the agenda is to make everyone androgynous. You know what I'm saying? Make all the men feel like women, or have to do feminine things in order to create their own balance, because they're too afraid or hurt or disturbed, or whatever it might be, whatever excuse it is, to try to connect with the opposite sex, and vice versa. All the women having to be extra masculine in order to create balance, because everyone's too scared to connect, rely, depend on, ask for help, work with, collaborate, consort with the opposite sex. And see, a lot of these things are these are the, it's a cycle. It's always a cycle thing. You have to think of everything in somewhat of a cycle, based upon patterns. Even when we think about concepts, I had some dude come to me at work, and he was kind of breaking down some shit. He was explaining, uh, these concepts that we've adopted and have become traditional ideas of how things should work. A lot of times these things have been forced upon us based upon circumstances. And again, remember, like, circumstances from history. When we think about history, we got to understand too, a lot of these stories been tailored and fabricated to create witchcraft on you, basically. And when I say witchcraft, I mean someone tricked you into thinking a certain way based upon telling you a story that made you feel a certain way and made you think a way that you wouldn't have originally thought had you gone through the experience yourself. When we think about because a lot of times I might say something like, oh, that's witchcraft, or, the individuals who run the world do witchcraft on you. And what I mean by that is witchcraft, having witchcraft being done on you, is anytime somebody made you feel and think a way that might not have been natural to you had you gone through that experience yourself. had you done the natural reaction you felt with no prior knowledge or awareness of a certain experience. Because at the end of the day, as an individual, it's very important that you go out and you live your life, because I can tell you a million things about what, and that's why I don't tell you what to do and what not to do. I just explain to you what we do, and you determine from your space, your perspective, what's right for you and what makes sense and what resonates. And you, and I don't even say it like what resonates, take it, and what don't. It's more like the way I like to explain things in the pocket I hope I hit is that pocket where it ain't really even about resonate and don't resonate. I mean, it's blank and open enough for you to place any scenario you in and decide from there based upon me providing all the different ways, or multiple different ways of seeing it, you to come up to your own conclusion. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, back to the subject. So when we talk about even that, you know what I'm saying, and dude was his explanation was, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree with this, I'm just from what he had said, he was talking about the concept of how men and women men go out and men provide and protect, and women what was it, man? I don't want to, actually, matter of fact, I don't want to butcher what he said, but it was something to the effect of, men going out and providing, and yeah, I don't want to butcher what he was saying, but yeah. So when we talk about relationships in today's time, a lot of what we think is right and what we think is wrong, a lot of that is genetically modified, right? GMO, how we would say, right? Genetically, but mentally modified based upon witchcraft and society, and what's been the traditional story and the things that we've carried on from generations and generations without even really questioning why it's like that or why it needs to be like that. Because going to understanding what a relationship even is, or relating is rooted in the system. Your relationship has to be custom curated to you and your partner, and what y'all agreed upon goal is, what y'all contractual goal is, when we talk about things like even marriage, and understanding that marriage, yes, is a piece of paper in the government's eyes, but marriage starts really before we even get there. It's a spiritual agreement. It's us coming together as who we truly are, our individual self, and then deciding from you know there basically what our shared values, interests are, and where we want to go, our goal. Because relationships, a lot of people make an analogy of it being an actual ship, and I like that analogy because a ship is at sea and must have a direction, and that direction is your lifetime. And how you pick your partner is, in theory, how you choose to plan and how you choose to spend your lifetime. Because whoever you with, that's you're going to be influenced by them, and they're going to be influenced by you, and there's no way around it. You can get in as many relationships as you want and claim, oh, I'm me, and I don't care what my partner does. My partner ain't got to be into the same thing. The thing is, no, y'all don't have to be in the literal same thing, but there has to be somewhat of an agreement, or a similarity in what your idea is long term of life, long term, how your ideal, how you think your life will go. It's like you can't be, it's very difficult for someone who lives a radically different life from you to be on board with the direction of y'all life together. Because see, the thing is, people meet, and the first thing we react to is all the things that feel good to us. Because like I said in the beginning of the video, people jump into relationships thinking about what they can get from it. Oh yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, she bad, man. She fine as hell, man. I bet. And then again, that take your mind to all kinds of places. Oh yeah, he got all this money. He does this. Oh, and he's attractive, and boom. Oh yeah, all these different things. These are surface level things that when you start to get into the real part of a relationship, which is direction. Because And jumping a little ahead of what I'm talking about, the feminine energy needs a direction, and the man energy has to have identity. And what I mean by that, like the masculine energy, and I'm using masculine and feminine. If you in a same sex relationship, again, that's same thing applies, because and when I say same sex, again, friendships with you with your homeboys, or you with your homegirls, or you with business associates and things like that, co-workers and stuff like that, this applies too. Of course, you have to use discernment to understand the context, but y'all can use this interchangeably with any kind of relationship. There's a masculine and there's a feminine. And what I mean by that, not to get too confused, because you might be looking like, how is masculine and feminine with my coworker? You be like, I ain't the bitch in my coworker relationship. And that's not what I'm saying. Don't think of it like that, but think of it as there's a receiver and there's a giver at the moment. And see, even in actual relationship, right, or a traditional relationship, right, between a man and a woman, that just because a man is a man and a woman is a woman doesn't mean there's not times that a woman has to take a step and lead in a certain area that she's better in than that man. There's times in which roles reverse, in which even though you a man, you better have some kind of feminine understanding and knowing when it's time for you to shut up and vibe and connect and hold some down and know how to manage something behind closed doors or behind the scenes, or on some emotional stuff, down to think about you and your kids, you out with your kids and stuff like that. And let's say one of your children needs you to nurture them in that moment, whether they hurt themselves or need something. You better calm all that macho man shit down and know how to connect to your child emotionally. Being emotionally aware as a man is one of the most powerful things you can do. And same thing as a woman, being intelligent, and I'm not saying intelligence is a male exclusive trait, but I'm saying having the ability to know when it's time to get out of your feelings and and apply logic to something and look at something objectively as something that needs to make sense and work for the sake of something going correct and being smooth in the further development of that idea or that plan. You know what I'm saying? Both of these are life skills. And I even would take it even so far back and say, we should be teaching our kids, the kids, life skills. And we can explain to them masculine and feminine, but even that, everyone's unique and different. There's a multitude of women who grow up and don't cook because they don't like to cook. Cook is not like, this is where gender roles kind of go a little too far, and where we even have to understand how our partners, how their perception of what masculine and what feminine energy is matters too. Because you might get with a man, you might be a woman who don't cook, you get with a man who expects you to cook just because you're a woman. That, again, think about, see, when we think about things like compatibility, think about how you want your life to go. Yeah, the sex might be good. Yeah, you might got all the things that make you feel comfortable enough to claim them in public. But is this the life, you want? And when I even say that, be careful, because I don't mean that from a shallow point of view either. Because let's say you with a dude and he's going through a hard time with his situation, but and this is where we start to talk about things like connection, and even the topic of love and stuff like that, right? Because love doesn't have to be self-sacrificing in that sense. Love is a certain level of, well, we'll get into that. I think that's reserved for a different part, because even when we think about love, that's a whole different deep dive. Because what we think about love, again, we might look at Libra, oh, that's Venus, love, but see, you start to realize that the type of love that Venus is talking about, it's not really what most people define as love. People define love more so as a moon type energy, they feeling closeness, safe, connected, and things like that. That's when they think of love, they think of a combination of a couple different energies actually. And that's a whole, and like I said before, like in previous lives and before in other videos, love is something you make. It's ingredients that go into love. Love is not just, We can't look at, oh, seventh house relationship, that's love. Not really. That is value. That's appreciation. That's exchange of that value. And that kind of goes into a different thing. You know what I'm saying? Like when we it goes into a different area. That's why no one zodiac sign can be the representation of love. You know what I'm saying? Even though you might be able to attribute certain traits and behaviors of a sign and say, oh, that's very loving. We might look at a Libra and say, oh, that's very beautiful. That's very considerate, or that's very relatable, harmonious, and things like that. But love is something the spirit makes with other things, and it's going to take some, but how they say, love is patient, love is kind, love is this, and then again, everybody has their own relationship of what love or own definition of what love is to them. And that's where love languages come into play, where you might be with somebody who the way they communicate love is not the same way you do. So from that point, again, there needs to be, and this is kind of the essence of the seventh house Libra energy. There needs to be some negotiation, some conversation, and both individuals need to be able to initiate that when it's time. Because see, in early stages of relationships, the initiation of things that will help create balance later might not be initiated based upon what feels good and what's very satisfying at the moment. You know what I'm saying? When you're in those early stages, you getting a new person. So all of the quirks and little things, all the discovery of this, oh, you snore and all that starts to become over exaggerated because it's new. I've never seen this before. So we want all of it all the time. And then we get sick of it a year in, or it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't fulfill us dopamine wise the same way it did when we first got something new. So this is where, again, I thought you said you liked this. I didn't know that you cared so much about leaving shoes on the floor. I didn't know that. I didn't know you actually snore all night. I didn't know you snore. Like, you know what I'm saying? I didn't know you actually talk in your sleep. Like, that was cute on FaceTime when we was first getting together. But I didn't know that now that I'm in the same house as you, that you was literally gonna, you know what I'm saying, snore in my ear all night and shit like that. That's shit not cute no more. That's what I mean. Like, but the thing about it is, when we look at Libra energy and we understand what it is, the cardinal air, the initiation of communication, and also communicate the initiation of thinking and being able to consider things, right? And like I said before, at the root, a lot of times people come into relationships looking for what they can get out of it, because a lot of the trauma previously, until we get into that relationship, is us going through life, having parents who, of course, as children, we grow up, there's things we want but can't get. Parents dependent, and see, it ranges, because you got to really consider how a person's parents treated them, because it directly correlates to what they wear as a chip on their shoulder, or what they demand and expect from a partner. You grow up, like, for example, if a person grows up without a father, for instance, two things can happen. Either they've become so cool and straight and balanced and self-regulated themselves that they feel as though they don't need that kind of energy, or they become desperate to find that energy in anybody else they encounter. There's two types of people who lose something, accept that it's lost, and learn to deal with it. These are flawed people later on. And again, we're all flawed, but these become people who are not whole, not they are who they are because of the circumstances they were in. So they had to work and figure out how to be whole without that part of them. Other end of that, people who lose something and they know that they lost it, and they are determined to find it, because deep down inside they know that it's almost like the world owes me this. So they go out and they create. If they can't find it, and spirit does this, if it can't find it, it's going to create it. And that's kind of the reminder, really. And see, the thing is that that's the more positive way of kind of dealing on that side of things. I'm gonna create it for myself and make that. But what I mean by create it, they'll force and project it onto others, onto everything, until they feel as though they have something that can at least satisfy that hole. Because all spirit does is fulfill. So when there's empty spaces in us, which develop from childhood, and not having the tools or people around us who can help us regulate our mentality, because it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, our mentality. That's why at this point everybody's like, yo, you need to go to therapy. Everybody will say that, like, everybody needs therapy, because nobody, and I think this is a thing of generation. Like, I think just generational wise, people didn't have all the awareness, because it's really about awareness. If your parent didn't have the awareness to explain to you how to regulate emotions, or how to think critically, if you weren't taught, you're forced to develop it yourself. And some of us are fortunate to go out in the world and receive experiences early that put us on game. Other people aren't. You know what I'm saying? Just as seamless as there's kids who grew up in the hood, and that's all they'll ever be. There's kids who grew up in the suburbs, and that's all that they'll ever be. I'm fucking that sentence up. But then there's people who are in the suburbs but got to experience a little bit of the world outside of the suburbs, and now they're well-rounded, and they have more autonomy. They can go anywhere they want. Vice versa. People who grew up in the hood, but they got to see other representations of life, so they're well-rounded, and now they're in more control over their own life. They can go where they want. They have more power in that sense. And so that's why even I would say power is in awareness, because the more awareness you have, it's like the more tools you have access to. Because as a spirit, you're limitless. You can create anything. And it starts with the mentality. If you can think it, God damn it, you can manifest it. And if you can manifest it, that's just giving you the opportunity to materialize it. Once you materialize it, it's real. And that can be converted into other things. You know what I'm saying? But it's all about awareness. And so a lot of the issue is we jump into these relationships with a lack of awareness of ourselves. And see, the thing is, ironically, we're actually hyper aware of what we are missing. So we go into a relationship aware of what we're missing, which becomes the projection of insecurities. Which becomes the dependence on, especially if we say we jump into a relationship, we get that relationship, and that person actually has something that's just enough for us to see, oh, this thing I was so aware of myself not having, this person has. Guess what happens then? As the relationship develops, you start to expect that from them, because you're like, oh, you have that thing, give it here. Now, on the other end of that, the person you're dealing with, they also have that process going on with themselves. And so this is the beginning stages of tit for tat energy, because now because I'm self-aware of something I lack that I think that you have, I want it. Because with a relationship starts to become, the longer you're in a relationship, the more comfortable you get, and the more uncomfortable you get at the same time. It's like you're getting comfortable. It's like, when you spend the night over somebody, you ever had somebody spend the night over your house, and it's like the first night, oh yeah, Miss Johnson, I'm not hungry. I don't really need anything. You know what I'm saying? Sitting in the corner. It's like, come on, man, get more relaxed. You're going to be here for the whole week, right? Day 2, they might still be on some shot shit. By day 4, 5, all of a sudden the personality coming out, they're getting a little more comfortable, but they also getting a little more bold. Yeah, actually, Miss Johnson, I'm very hungry. I'm kind of starving and stuff like that. Then by the week, they crossing the line. They kind of like, yeah, they come to the table. I'm gonna take the big piece of chicken. Like, nah, bro. You know what I'm saying? They talking how they want to talk. They got their feet on the coffee table. You like, yo, you bugging. Hold on. This not your house. And this is like a natural thing, because people get comfortable into situations. So when you're in a relationship, that's what happens. You get comfortable. You start to let your, how they say, your true colors show. And the thing is, and see, this is a natural thing, because this ain't even nothing that you gotta blame yourself or even blame others for, because you'll get some people who want to rush into the who are you really. You know what I'm saying? They want to rush you. And see, this is the thing too. That's not even necessarily the right thing to do. Things should happen organically. The more organic things happen, the more a lot of times the better they feel. When something's rushed, you can always tell. So if you try to rush authenticity in the honeymoon phase, well, that alters your relationship in a certain way, and vice versa. If you brush off the real topics and real things, and you try to overstay your welcome in the honeymoon phase, then you suffer in that regard. So it all has to be organic. And again, there's no time limit. Everybody's different. Some people get married in a week. Other people, it takes 10, 20, like Ashanti and what's his name? Nelly and shit like that. Yeah. Or people who's actually been together, been engaged for a real long time, been engaged for like 20 years and shit like that. Everybody, it needs to be as organic as possible. Because again, a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, the rushing is come from anxiety, and it's coming from and when we think about anxiety, again, these are things that outside of your relationship are now influencing it. Because whenever you're in a relationship, it's really between you and that spirit alone. The issue is the baggage we bring based upon trauma, what we feel, and what we haven't quite dealt with ourselves starts to become the forces that be that influence us from outside of what we're creating. And once they're influencing us, certain times, again, let's say you got certain anxiety. That's like a cloud that's causing a dimness over y'all land, y'all world that y'all building. So you got the anxiety cloud. Let's say the other person has abandonment issues they haven't dealt with. So there's a certain there's a cold wind now in y'all world, and y'all still creating beautiful things. Y'all having beautiful moments, but that trauma, that those clouds, those elements are always going to influence the seasons y'all go through, because there's going to be times where you need them for certain things, or you feel as though it's like everybody go through different things in life. They go through different seasons in that sense, right? Metaphorically. But part of a relationship is the maintenance of that world. Analogy, another metaphor like I was using before, the travel of that ship through the treacherous waters that be. In the waters, the waves y'all gonna hit waves regardless. But think of the weather conditions. The weather conditions are the mental illnesses we done picked up from unresolved trauma, not knowing how to regulate certain other emotions, things we go through, things we've been through, things we see in the future that we don't want, maybe want, need, feel like we can't live without. All of these things create influence. And see, I would say the thing is, I'm speaking from a space of, again, awareness. And I don't like, I can't tell you what to do, but I will say that's what happens. You know what I'm saying? It's like we have to figure out ways we can see, if you recognize aspects of yourself that create things like I was explaining, like this rain cloud, aka you take the time to sit with yourself, you do shadow work to know, yeah, I be anxious sometimes, and you do the work to find the links between why you do this and why you do that. That's the best thing you could do, because I'm not going to say the best thing you could do, but that's a starting point of being able to have healthier relationships, because you're able to be honest on a level that gives the other person awareness of who you are. And especially as men, I feel like men, because everyone has their different roles in a relationship. As men, a lot of times we are expected to lead, and especially when it comes to the way we deal with certain situations within the relationship. If you were to think of it like I was using the analogy, it's the land that we on. We are supposed to set that foundation, right? Or any masculine energy. So even think about it like, even if you're in something like a business meeting and you're giving a presentation, well, guess what? You're in the masculine energy. You got to be in the masculine energy in order to get that client to agree, in order to get that merger made, and in order to make that deal, whatever it is. You are expressing something that day, so you got to come with that magic. So you enter that situation to set the tone, right? And setting the tone sometimes has to look like what we might consider double standards, what we might consider highly uncomfortable for us to have to deal with, especially in today's time. Bringing it back to modern day relationships, you might not want to take certain risks and things like that. But and that's kind of getting ahead of myself. But my point is, for the sake of this, and I'm gonna come back to that, right? And that'll probably be the last thing I'll talk. I'll loop around to. But as the masculine energy, the role you're playing is to set the tone, which requires a certain level of emotional intelligence and being able to also regulate your own emotions and know how to, regardless of what you feel, still carry out the plan as determined. It's almost like the masculine energy has to know how to have that certain stability or that consistency or even that stubbornness at times that makes sure that certain things don't go cross a certain line, certain things don't go out of order. You know how you have to know how to actually situate and organize your stuff. And these are masculine principles. You know what I'm saying? Just like the feminine energy has to know when it's time to encourage, has to also know when it's time to soothe, has to know when it's time to you know, also bring certain things up that must be attended to. That mute moon energy that we might attribute to women that we deal with, that is like, oh, she's nagging, right? How we say, oh, women be nagging or something like that. All that nagging, that's necessary. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would never discourage a woman from nagging, even as annoying as it might be, or he might be making it seem. Any dude who making your nagging seem like a problem, he not listening. And again, it takes time, because not everybody want to hear that all the time, right? But the thing is, and what I'm saying is, it's not even nagging, but it be things that the feminine sees and is reacting to, that is the equivalent of if you was a man driving and the woman in your passenger seat is pointing out certain things we need to be aware of on the trip. As the man, you supposed to be in your masculine enough to know how to receive what's being said and actually listen and decipher what's actually a threat and what's not, right? But also be able to reassure and give, confirmation that I am also aware of this too, and this is the plan. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that. Yep, yep. Check, check. We did that. We did that. The reassurance coming from actual action, physical action. I'm using the analogy of being on the road, but this will save you in an actual relationship as well. And like I said, I'm speaking on this stuff, but it's still stuff I learned too. You know what I'm saying? We all learn it at the same time. Each one teach one. I'm just as much of a student as y'all might think I am a teacher or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I learn every day. That's just what it is, from any and everything, because life shows you. Life always gonna show you. And again, that don't mean I'm void of mistakes either. How I'm explaining this shit too. I make mistakes every day. You know what I'm saying? And the thing about it is, and even in relationships, even when we talk about giving your partner grace, again, we come into relationships expecting them to already know the things that it would be impossible for them to know, how to treat us. We come into a relationship thinking about what we are going to get out of it and how good we want to feel and how good we think things should be, and everything we bring to the table that should already justify the fact that you should give me more. And it's like that. And my take, and I said this recently on the live, my take is that that's just the overall wrong perspective, in that better relationships are somewhat the key of a better future, in the sense of, if we're changing the world, we need to change how we relate to each other, especially in these brand new times with all kinds of new technology and things to get lost and distracted in. And it doesn't make any better the type of pressures that society is, or the messages that society is already perpetuating, and the images that they're giving us to feel comfortable with. But the type of world I see that leading to is not one that's going to produce positivity and for people to feel closer to each other. Because at the end of the day, both men and women want the same thing. Both masculine and feminine energies want the same thing, and that's safety. And that's why I say a lot of things we attribute to love don't really be the love we think. It's more about safety. All women want to do is feel safe, provided for, protected, led, given order. All men want to do is feel safe. be cared for, be respected, be protected, but on an emotional end, and be led also sometimes when it comes to um, emotional clarity and security in that aspect too. It's like the same things, you know what I'm saying, but from different perspectives. A man might not need his woman to pay all the bills, but he do need her to show signs of being, there emotionally, aware of what's going on, what he's going through, and what he wants to, and being able to be there to kind of guide in that sense of, we ain't got to feel like this. And see, the thing is, like I said before, we all need something different. So that's all going to look different for everybody. Everybody got different degrees of that. But at the end of the day, it comes down to safety. You want to be in that relationship to feel safe. You want to be in that, and the thing is, we feel safest on our own. So when things don't go good, boom, okay, well, that's even more of a reason to get in my individual bag. And see, again, still, if we start like I said before, if we come into looking only at what we want and what we not getting, that becomes also that becomes the reason why we both ain't gonna get what we both need. It's like that's a surefire way. It's almost like if we come in there only from what we can get from it, first of all, we don't accept who we even dealing with first. We don't even understand who is on the other side of that. Because so what we're doing is we're not connecting. We're in our own bubble, but trying to reach our hand out and grab for something with an empty hand. We like, come on, give it to, yeah. And then we both on each other's like this. And think about, I know I can't do it, but think about both hands doing like this. It's like, so when that's how it feels nowadays, when in the modern dating world, you're reaching your hand out, both y'all reaching your hand out like this, and we're missing each other. We're disconnected. We're miles apart. You all the way over there, and I'm all the way over here, and we got a hand. We not even close to each other, but we still doing this. Versus when you walk into a relationship, more so, I'm not gonna say giving, because you ain't got to be naive, you ain't got to be gullible, but if you're actually engaged into something and it's based upon the right things, this is like you walking out of your bubble. And see, this is the vulnerability part, to be able to step outside of your bubble of what's comfortable, and then have them step outside of their bubble from what's comfortable to them, and then you have these two energies meet in a completely new space. And from that point, and see, both of y'all left y'all bubble with something, and that something is yourselves, right? But let's just say in this case, it's something you got physically, but it's yourself. Other person got a box in their hand. They like, it's myself. And y'all meet in this middle. And this is where you exchange what you got for what they got. And then now y'all have the starting blocks to create a whole new world there. And yeah, every now and then you're going to have to go to your world, maybe to grab something. And that's the metaphor for you getting a better understanding of something, you learning more about yourself, the shadow work I was talking about, understanding aspects of your own trauma, your own issues, what you didn't get as a kid, that, oh, damn, I didn't know that. And it's not all negative things. It's also the beautiful things, the things that made your family thrive, the things you can remember that did make you smile, that you want to continue into the new relationship. You're supposed to take that, right? Only for a second, go back to your world, but then bring it to this world. And same thing for that other person. And then boom, before you know it, y'all done created this whole unique ecosystem. And if it's built on the right things, it's more of a chance for that to be fertile land for other things to grow. And that's the space you want to birth a child in. You don't want to, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the ideal space. Because see, the thing is, and why I say relationships are the key, because two things: relationships are the foundations of, first of all, parenting, children coming up in a healthy a healthy household with good relationship dynamics that start with, because see, it's like, kids are gonna get birthed into a situation where the relationship dynamic is already toxic. That kid is only going to complicate that dynamic. or irritated or agitated, right? Versus a child coming into a healthy relationship dynamic. Yeah, it's still gonna, because anytime you add something new, it's gonna add a reaction to it, but it's more of a probability that be a positive, turn out to be a positive interaction or reaction or whatever than a negative one if the dynamic is already positive, versus if it's already negative. Yeah, a child could maybe be the blessing, and all of a sudden, yeah, the child is the key to making the whole household relationship dynamic better. But think about how much pressure that is on a kid. And y'all know, kids who grew up in that kind of environment, y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. That was like hell for y'all, and that's the reason why y'all don't have no healthy shit nowadays. Or y'all just decide to hell with it, I'm gonna just get this money and we gonna keep it pushing. How can we blame you if you spent your whole adolescence repairing relationships you didn't even damage before you even knew how to talk? It's a lot of pressure, and we put a lot of energy. I think that's also a different topic too when we talk about childhood. That's a lot of pressure we put on children. Same thing, he's even going through a financial struggle and having a child. That's a lot of pressure to put on a child. The child's supposed to come in the world and be catered to, in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Because they are the future. So their development is key for a better world in general. You want to change the world, raise your kids. Like, if you grew up to, if you was trying to change the world and you ain't did it, you can't find anything to do. You like, man, I just want to change the world, I don't know how. And you already got a child, boy, you better be raising your child. If you want to change the world, that should be the first thing. Anybody who says they want to change the world must be changing. It must be raising a child right. Because you have no business trying to be an influence, because that's the only way you're going to change the world, is if you would influence. You have no business influencing the world if you're not influencing the things you brought into this world. And that's even down to yourself. If you're not treating your own self right, the proper thoughts, feelings, it can look like nutrition and things like that. And I'm not saying like if you out of shape and shit like that, you can't change the world. But I'm saying take care of yourself mentally, like better thoughts and feelings, being able to put good things into the world, create good art, positive art. Again, that's what's going to really, but it, starts with the kids. But getting back to the dynamic, that's one aspect, right? Children, but then also community, proper relationship dynamics, understanding yourself and being able to relate is the foundation also of a community. And a community is built on these little micro relationships. The 7th house is right before the 11th. The 3rd house is really about you. It's your own mentality. But then it determines the type of relationships you're able to establish based upon who's around you. It's like if you're an individual at a party, you at the party, right? So based upon your confidence, you're going to be portraying a certain energy, willing to have certain conversations, right? But then there's going to start the next step of that is the one-on-one conversations you have at that party. Those one-on-one relationships become how the vibe of the whole party is going to go. So you're the one throwing the party. You need to know everyone you're inviting and then kind of have an idea of how everyone's going to balance out with each other. Who doesn't like who's cool with who. If we get all the people who cool with each other, we're going to have a cool party. That's going to be a cool system. Same thing with a business. Business is a little more cut and dry because it's not really about how you feel. It's about what's going to make us the profit and X, Y, and Z. But team chemistry is very much important even in work. A manager separate two people, change their schedules to not ever see each other if they know that the chemistry they have at work ain't good for productivity. So these little micro relationships, one-on-one joints that we have with people, these things are the foundation of a community. And community is the only way, especially in today's time, that we're going to be able to thrive. Because, see, community opens the door for, how do I say this? Community is really the key for this next phase of the world. And people don't realize it yet. I see some people who was talking crazy about it that's changing their mind nowadays because they know Community is the only way certain things are going to. And when I say community, I'm not talking about what you might think of community as far as the outdated version of what it is. I'm talking about individuals really knowing how to come together, pooling resources, and making new definitions of what's valuable and what's not, what's real and what's not. And from that collection of individuals, right, being able to create standalone systems outside of what we might depend on as a system now. Because we see this crumbling and everybody's seeing the same thing and they know it too. But the only thing that makes sense is individuals knowing how to come together and creating things that establish a foundation for a new system that is controlled by them. Even how we see in the music industry and stuff like that. But that's kind of a different topic. I think I've yapped for long enough on this one. I probably am going to come with a part 2 because there's a lot of things I didn't even get into, especially regarding the masculine energy and the feminine energy and safety and things like that. So, like I said, I'm changing up the format a little bit. I need to get these regular videos out just as much as I'm going live. And I want to get on a more consistent schedule and shit like that. So hold me accountable to that. You know what I'm saying? Go off on me in the comments and stuff like that. When, do what you got to do. But I'm going to make sure I do what I got to do so that we can continue to grow this channel. We can continue to do things like, help the world with, mental health in that capacity, understanding these different dynamics so that we can live better lives, be better versions of ourselves, and then make better attempts at a connection. Because the thing is, it's not all on you. A lot of times we attempt these connections and they let us down. And it's just because, like I said, a lack of awareness, both of self and both of how to do this in this new time. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody's learning at the end of the day. Each one teach one. Speaking of that, make sure if you are interested in the women's Each One Teach One classes, which is basically an online course where we're teaching things such as the ways to think and better ways to, I don't want to say better ways to think and feel, but it's these different topics that we're discussing it's about life. It's a new way to do an online course, and we're talking about life, and it's our way of mixing education but revitalizing it with community. And so there's a form of being able to understand from other people who have knowledge in different areas, and you apply your knowledge and we all grow together in a very new way, in a very fun way too. We have fun, we laugh with each other, we connect, but we're there to learn and to teach as well. So if you're interested into the women's version of that, make sure that you send an email to 717conference.info@gmail.com. I'm gonna put it down low in the description. Other than that, if you want to get a reader from me, I do have a website that I'm working on. I will have that up where you could easily just click on what you want and get it, what I'm saying, basically. So that's coming soon. Stay on the lookout for that. But in the meantime, say you want a reading now, you can't wait, go ahead, email me as well at 717conference.info@gmail.com, and I will get right to you on that. Other than that, keep being great. Much love and enjoy this Libra season. See you on the next one. Peace.